So when we're trying to determine when a student's filling out a FAFSA, whose information should go on there, the first question we need to ask is, are they a dependent or an independent student? So there are certain questions that we ask of the student. Were you born before January 1st, 2002? Or another way to think of that is, will you be 24 before January 1st of the school year? Are you married? At the beginning of the year, will you be working on a master's or doctorate program, which happens after a bachelor's degree? Are you currently on active duty in the armed forces for purposes other than training, other than basic training, which is considered active duty? Are you a veteran of the armed forces? Do you now have children who will receive more than half of their support from you between July 1st of the school year and June 30th, the end of the school year? And then we have a whole other set of questions. I'll have you advance that, Carrie. Do you have dependents other than a children or spouse who live with you and who receive more than half of their support from you now and through June 30th of the school year? At any time since you turned 13, were both your parents deceased? Were you in foster care or were you a dependent or ward of the court? As determined by a court in your state of legal residence, are you or were you an emancipated minor, meaning you've divorced your parents? And does someone other than your parent or step-parent have legal guardianship of you as determined by a court in your state of legal residence? So note that it says other than your parent or step-parent. This is not a custody question. This is, are you in a legal guardianship with somebody other than a parent or step-parent? So those are the questions sort of you run through. And then there's an unusual circumstance question, which is, are you an unaccompanied youth who is homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? And note that we highlighted unaccompanied because if a student is with their parents and homeless, they do not answer yes to this question. But if they are unaccompanied, then they would answer yes. And that can be determined through the high school that they attend, a district homeless liaison, the director of an emergency shelter or transitional housing program, the director of a runaway or homeless youth basic center or transitional living program, or a director or designee of a federal TRIO program, such as the TRIO programs that are held by VSAC, the Talent Search, Gear Up, or Educational Opportunity Center programs. Any of those agencies or institutions can determine homelessness and provide documentation for the student to say yes to being an unaccompanied youth who's homeless. And if all of those questions, as the student is running through those, if all of those are no, the student is considered dependent for federal student aid and they have to provide parent information. And note that the questions didn't ask if they lived with the parent. It didn't ask if the parents claim them on taxes. Those are not determining dependency for financial aid. This is a specific criteria just for financial aid. Students that are considered dependent, but their parents refuse to contribute information now have the opportunity to answer a question on the FAFSA to say that and to be only considered for unsubsidized federal student loans. They are not eligible for any grant aid because you have to provide parental income if you are dependent. They can, however, still borrow a federal student loan. And if those circumstances are all no's and the student is considered dependent, but there are other situations that are preventing parent contact or the ability to provide information, the student can work with the college financial aid administrator to ask for a dependency override. So they can fill out the FAFSA without their parent information. They get a provisional student aid index, so not a determined number, but a provisional. And then the student has to appeal and send documentation and work with their college financial aid administrator to evaluate whether they qualify for a dependency override. It's not something that anyone other than the college administrator themselves can authorize.